Do you know the Euphrates River? Do you know the prophecies? Have you ever heard the horrifying screams in the riverbed? Why did that terrifying screaming sound appear? Is it hiding something? Today, you will learn about one of the most well-known prophecies in Christian faith. More than 2,000 years ago, the Bible predicted that the Euphrates River, Asia's largest and longest river, would completely dry up, and that when that day arrived, something terrible would occur. In the Bible, what does this mean? According to the Bible, the sixth angel poured his vial on the great river Euphrates, causing its water to dry up in order to prepare the way for the kings of the East. Revelation 16:12. The Euphrates River flows through the Asian continent's Mesopotamian countries. Several Christians around the world have defended and highlighted the river prophecy. But why? According to them, the evidence begins with a location, as the Euphrates River is in the east. The other reason is that the countries in this region have enough resources to form a large army, as the Bible predicts an army of 200 million soldiers marching through it in Revelation 9:16-18. The Euphrates River is located in an area where several significant biblical events occurred. According to Christianity, this river formed a border with the Garden of Eden. Its waters flowed through the location that God designed to be the home of Adam and Eve, as well as all of the animals he created at the beginning of time. The scriptures also show that God chose this river as one of the boundaries of the promised land that would be given to Abraham's descendants in Genesis 15:18. And it was also in this region that Nimrod established the Babylonian religion, where the Tower of Babel was built as a symbol of defiance to God. And according to Revelation 9, when the river dries up, an army of more than 200 million soldiers will march from the east. It's interesting to note that when the Apostle John wrote these words, the world's population was less than 200 million. But just when you think this prophecy can't get any scarier, consider what the Bible says. And he released the 4 angels who were prepared for the hour and day, month and year to kill the third part of men, in Revelation 9:15. The Euphrates is mentioned in the Bible several times. In Genesis 2:14, it is mentioned as one of the rivers that surround the Garden of Eden. In Genesis 15:18, the river is mentioned as one of the boundaries of the land that God gave to Abraham's descendants. That same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, "To your descendants I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates." What stands out the most is that Jeremiah predicted its drought in Jeremiah 50:38-39. "The sword will come upon your waters, and they will dry up, for it is a land of graven images, and its inhabitants are driven insane by these terrible things. As a result, the desert beasts and jackals will live in Babylon, as will the ostriches. It will never be populated or inhabited again from generation to generation." Some even claim that the scenes I'm about to show belong to the 4 imprisoned angels. Well, we aren't sure. But one thing is certain. According to the Bible, when the river completely dries up, these 4 fallen angels will be released to lead a massive army capable of annihilating a third of humanity. Therefore, if we add that number to all the other judgments in Revelation, it would mean that more than half of the population would be destroyed, given that the planet currently has an average of 8 billion inhabitants. That implies that 4 billion people would vanish overnight. At this point, you might be wondering who these angels were and where they originated. Some Bible scholars believe these are the same fallen angels mentioned in Jude, chapter 1 of the New Testament. They claim that these angels entered the world because they found men's daughters attractive. They continued to have relationships with these women, which resulted in the creation of hybrid beings known as the Nephilim. When God realized what had happened, he became enraged and unleashed a flood on earth. What happened to the angels? According to the scriptures, God imprisoned them in places of total darkness. Take a closer hearing at the words, "And the angels which did not keep their own principality, but left their own dwelling place he reserved in darkness and in eternal chains until the judgment of that great day." And now that we've learned about the prophecies surrounding this river, we can understand why so many people are researching it. It so happens that the region of Mesopotamia, where the Euphrates River flows, is currently experiencing severe drought. According to the Ministry of Water Resources, Iraq is experiencing one of the most severe water crises since 1930. Due to the constant droughts, local authorities in the region estimate that on average, 1,200 families have abandoned the southern regions of Iraq, where agricultural activity is more prevalent. With that, thousands of families were affected as many of them depended on animal husbandry, which is one of the only ways to survive there. Another interesting fact is that the decrease in the volume of water in the Tigris and Euphrates rivers provided numerous benefits to the archaeological community. This reduction enabled the discovery of previously unknown archaeological sites, such as one built in the early 1970s and containing over 11,000 years of history. This site is located in the far north of Iraq. Furthermore, the drought has uncovered an ancient city in the Mosul region. All of this occurred because the Mosul Dam reservoir experienced an extended dry spell. This dam contains the waters of the Tigris, one of Iraq's largest rivers. Let's talk about Zajiko, a newly discovered city in northern Mesopotamia. Researchers believe this city may have been mentioned in ancient Babylonian texts. This city was discovered to have large fortifications, cast metal walls made of bricks, and even evidence of residential buildings. Archaeologists also found a 3,400-year-old palace. According to the researchers, this structure belonged to the Meten Empire, which ruled parts of Syria, Iraq, and Turkey. In the Bible, it said when the Euphrates River runs dry, then immense things are on the horizon, perhaps even the foretelling of the second coming of Jesus Christ and the rapture. Revelation 16:12 reads, "The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east." Well, not to sound dramatic or anything, but it looks like that time is nigh. Together with the Tigris, the Euphrates carves through present-day Syria and Iraq before emptying into the Persian Gulf. For thousands of years, the twin rivers have allowed farming communities and grand cities to flourish in Mesopotamia, which is considered the cradle of some of the world's earliest civilizations. However, for several decades, it's become increasingly apparent that the Tigris-Euphrates river system is drying out. A government report in 2021 warned that the rivers could run dry by 2040 due to declining water levels and droughts driven by climate change. NASA's Twin Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment, GRACE, satellites collected images of this area in 2013 and found that the Tigris and Euphrates river basins had lost 144 cubic kilometers, 34 cubic miles, of fresh water since 2003. GRACE data show an alarming rate of decrease in total water storage in the Tigris and Euphrates river basins, which currently have the second fastest rate of groundwater storage loss on Earth after India, said Jay Famiglietti, principal investigator of the study and a hydrologist and professor at UC Irvine, in a statement. The rate was especially striking after the 2007 drought. Meanwhile, demand for fresh water continues to rise, and the region does not coordinate its water management because of different interpretations of international laws, explained Famiglietti. The strain is already starting to show, but a total collapse of the river system would spell disaster for the region. Millions of people across Turkey, Syria, and Iraq rely on the Tigris-Euphrates for water. As the rivers start to struggle, international disputes over access to water are already heating up. These arguments have also prevented governments from effectively reaching any solution to the problem. Parched for water, these countries could also be facing a looming public health crisis. A recent report published in the British medical journal, BMJ, investigated how a myriad of health emergencies are building in Iraq because people are struggling to get their hands on clean water. Diarrhea, chickenpox, measles, typhoid fever, and cholera are currently spreading across Iraq because of the water crisis, and the government no longer provides vaccines to its citizens. Nasir Bakar, climate activist and field coordinator at Tigris River Protectors Association in Iraq, told the BMJ, although the Bible's predictions of the Euphrates' fate should be taken with a bucket of salt, perhaps its forecasting of monumental change wasn't far wrong. The Bible mentions the Euphrates River numerous times. This long river has played an important role in history. It also has spiritual significance. The Euphrates River has fascinating symbolic meaning in the Bible and is mentioned in biblical prophecies about it drying up as well. Learning about the Euphrates River can help us understand more about God's power. The Euphrates River is a major river in Western Asia that flows from its source in Turkey through Syria and Iraq before finally emptying into the Persian Gulf. The river is approximately 1,740 miles long. It has played an important role in the history of the region, serving for thousands of years as a vital source of water for people to drink and irrigate crops, as well as a major transportation and trade route. The Euphrates River was a key factor in the development of early civilizations, such as the Sumerian, Babylonian, and Assyrian empires. It is home to many ancient cities that were once major centers of civilization and culture, including Ur, Babylon, and Nineveh. Its waters were used to irrigate crops, making agriculture possible in arid land. The river was also a key transportation route for people to travel and to trade goods such as timber, precious metals, and textiles. Today, the Euphrates River remains an important source of water for irrigation, hydroelectric power generation, and drinking water for millions of people in Syria, Iraq, and Turkey. However, the river currently faces several challenges, including drought, dam construction, and pollution, which threaten its continued viability as a vital resource for the region. The Bible often mentions the Euphrates River as a geographical marker, but it also describes the river's significance as a symbol of God's power over the natural world that He has created. The Euphrates River is a complex symbol in the Bible. It reminds us that God exercises both love and judgment. In various verses, the Bible mentions the Euphrates River in ways that speak of both hope and destruction. It is often mentioned in connection with the history and geography of the ancient civilizations it flowed through, as well as in prophetic passages that speak of future events. In Genesis 2:14, the Euphrates is one of 4 rivers that flow from the Garden of Eden. This suggests that the Euphrates is a place of fertility and abundance. Genesis 15:18 mentions the Euphrates River as one of the boundaries of the land God promises to Abraham, and Deuteronomy 1:7 and Joshua 1:4 mention the Euphrates when describing the land God promises to the Israelites. Those passages present the Euphrates as a place of hope and promise. In Isaiah 8:6-8, the Euphrates River serves as a metaphor for God's judgment for sin. God speaks of allowing the Assyrian army to invade and overwhelm Judah like the mighty floodwaters of the Euphrates. Because this people has rejected the gently flowing waters of Shiloah and rejoices over Rezin and the son of Remaliah, therefore the Lord is about to bring against them the mighty floodwaters of the Euphrates, the king of Assyria with all his pomp. It will overflow all its channels, run over all its banks, and sweep on into Judah, swirling over it, passing through it, and reaching up to the neck. Its outspread wings will cover the breadth of your land, Emmanuel. The prophet Jeremiah foretells in Jeremiah 46:10 that Babylon will be conquered and the Euphrates River will be dried up. But that day belongs to the Lord Almighty, a day of vengeance, for vengeance on his foes. The sword will devour till it is satisfied, till it has quenched its thirst with blood. For the Lord Almighty, will offer sacrifice in the land of the north by the river Euphrates. That passage shows God's control over the land and river he created. Jeremiah 50:38-39 describes the Euphrates River drying up in the future because of God's judgment against sin. God declares in those verses, "A drought on her waters. They will dry up, for it is a land of idols, idols that will go mad with terror. It will never again be inhabited or lived in from generation to generation." In Revelation 16:12, the Euphrates River dries up, allowing for evil kings to invade Israel. The 6th angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. That passage suggests the Euphrates is a place of judgment and destruction at that point in history. The Euphrates River, like all rivers, may dry up for a non-spiritual reason, simply because of people not taking good care of the river's environment. Spiritually, Bible scholars have offered various interpretations of Bible passages about the Euphrates River drying up. Some see it as a symbol of the decline and fall of the Babylonian Empire, which was a powerful force in the ancient world but eventually lost its dominance. Others see it as a sign of the end times, which lead up to when Jesus will return to judge the world and separate the righteous from the wicked. In that interpretation, the Euphrates River drying up may point to the unleashing of the forces of darkness on the world. It could be referring to when the Antichrist will gather his armies to invade Israel. In that scenario, the dry riverbed of the Euphrates can allow the armies to cross the river and attack Israel. We don't know precisely when that will happen, but pondering the Euphrates drying up during the end times, whenever that actually takes place, is a sobering reminder that God is in control of history. He will bring judgment on the world for its sin, but he will also protect his people. We can trust in God, even in the midst of the darkest of times. Ultimately, the biblical meaning of the Euphrates drying up is a matter of interpretation and debate. What is clear, however, is that the image of the river running dry is a powerful symbol of the spiritual dryness that can afflict people who turn away from God. The solution for spiritual dryness is a relationship with God, who is our living water. The Bible refers to God as living water numerous times. Jesus reveals in John 4:14, "Whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." In John 7:37-38, Jesus encourages us, "Let anyone who is thirsty come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as Scripture has said, rivers of living water will flow from within them." The Euphrates River has spiritual significance for Christians because the Bible mentions it in both historical and prophetic contexts. It serves as a symbol of both positive and negative change and points to God's power over the natural world he has created. The Euphrates also can inspire us to reflect on the battle between good and evil, as well as the contrast between spiritual dryness and the spiritual fulfillment that God provides through Jesus, who provides the ultimate satisfaction for our spiritual thirst. Hebrew, Perath; Assyrian, Purat; Persian cuneiform, Ufratush, whence Greek Euphrates, meaning sweet water. The Assyrian name means the stream, or the great stream. It is generally called in the Bible simply the river, Exodus 23:31, or the great river, Deuteronomy 1:7. The Euphrates is first mentioned in Genesis 2:14 as one of the rivers of paradise. It is next mentioned in connection with the covenant which God entered into with Abraham, 15:18, when he promised to his descendants the land from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates, Compageur Deuteronomy 11:24, Joshua 1:4, a covenant promise afterwards fulfilled in the extended conquests of David, 2 Samuel 8, 2:14, 1 Chronicles 18, 3, 1 Kings 4:24. It was then the boundary of the kingdom to the northeast. In the ancient history of Assyria and Babylon and Egypt, many events are recorded in which mention is made of the Great River. Just as the Nile represented in prophecy the power of Egypt, so the Euphrates represented the Assyrian power, Isaiah 8:7, Jeremiah 2:18. It is by far the largest and most important of all the rivers of Western Asia. From its source in the Armenian mountains to the Persian Gulf, into which it empties itself, it has a course of about 1,700 miles. It has two sources. One, the Frat, or Karasu, that is, the Black River, which rises 25 miles northeast of Erzurum. And two, the Muradchai, that is, the River of Desire, which rises near Ararat on the northern slope of Alatak. At Keban Mardan, 400 miles from the source of the former, and 270 from that of the latter, they meet and form the majestic stream, which is at length joined by the Tigris at Korna, after which it is called Shat el Arab, which runs in a deep and broad stream for above 140 miles to the sea. It is estimated that the alluvium brought down by these rivers encroaches on the sea at the rate of about 1 mile in 30 years. Hebrew, Perath; Assyrian, Purat; Persian cuneiform, Ufratush, whence Greek Euphrates, meaning sweet water. The Assyrian name means the stream, or the great stream. It is generally called in the Bible simply the river, Exodus 23:31, or the great river, Deuteronomy 1:7. The Euphrates is first mentioned in Genesis 2:14 as one of the rivers of paradise. It is next mentioned in connection with the covenant which God entered into with Abraham, 15:18, when he promised to his descendants the land from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. Compare Deuteronomy 11:24, Joshua 1:4, a covenant promise afterwards fulfilled in the extended conquests of David, 2 Samuel 8, 2, 14, 1 Chronicles 18, 3, 1 Kings 4:24. It was then the boundary of the kingdom to the northeast. In the ancient history of Assyria and Babylon and Egypt, many events are recorded in which mention is made of the Great River. Just as the Nile represented in prophecy the power of Egypt, so the Euphrates represented the Assyrian power. Isaiah 8:7, Jeremiah 2:18. It is by far the largest and most important of all the rivers of Western Asia, from its source in the Armenian mountains to the Persian Gulf into which it empties itself. It has a course of about 1,700 miles. It has two sources. One, the Frat or Kara-Su, that is, the Black River, which rises 25 miles northeast of Erzurum, and two, the Murad-Chai, that is, the River of Desire, which rises near Ararat on the northern slope of Alatar. At Kebun Mardan, 400 miles from the source of the former and 270 from that of the latter, they meet and form the majestic stream, which is at length joined by the Tigris at Korna, after which it is called Shat el Arab, which runs in a deep and broad stream for above 140 miles to the sea. It is estimated that the alluvium brought down by these rivers encroaches on the sea at the rate of about 1 mile in 30 years. The Euphrates is one of the historically most significant rivers in the world. The Tigris-Euphrates River Valley was the source of powerful civilizations, such as the Sumerians, the Assyrians, and the Babylonians. Without these twin rivers, the whole region would be a dry desert.